It was a sunny afternoon in San Diego, California. The sky was so intensely blue that it looked hand-painted, and the sea breeze carried with it the salty scent of the Pacific Ocean. The streets were buzzing with life, with tourists and locals mixing in a colorful and vibrant urban dance. In the midst of this bustle, a middle-aged man walked with firm steps, his posture emanating a quiet confidence that only years of success can provide. This man was Enrique Souza, a Mexican millionaire known not only for his fortune, but also for his generous heart. His dark brown eyes, framed by wrinkles of expression that told stories of laughter and worry, gazed intently at the landscape around him. Dressed in a white linen shirt and khaki pants, he looked more like an ordinary tourist than the tycoon he was. Next to him walked a young woman who had just turned 18. Marcela Souza, Enrique's only daughter, was the living image of youth and beauty. Her long black hair danced in the wind, and her eyes, inherited from her father, sparkled with the excitement of being in a foreign country. Dressed in a light floral dress and sandals, she emanated an aura of freshness and innocence. Father and daughter were celebrating Marcela's birthday with a trip to the United States. It was a tradition that Enrique made a point of maintaining. For every important milestone in his daughter's life, a special trip was planned. This one, in particular, had a bittersweet taste for the millionaire. Marcela was about to start university, and Enrique knew that moments like this would become increasingly rare. "Dad, can we stop for an ice cream?" Marcela asked, her eyes fixed on a small artisan ice cream parlor across the street. Enrique smiled, unable to deny his princess anything. "Of course, mi amor. Today is your day, we'll do whatever you want." They crossed the street, their hands intertwined as they had done since Marcela was small enough to get lost in a shopping mall. The inside of the ice cream parlor was an oasis of coolness compared to the heat outside. The sweet aroma of waffles and melted sugar filled the air, making both of their mouths water. While Marcela was enjoying a 3-ball sundae, chocolate, strawberry and vanilla, topped with warm caramel syrup and a generous dollop of whipped cream, Enrique was content to watch her, his own pistachio ice cream forgotten in his hand. "What's wrong, Dad?" Marcela asked, noticing the distant look on her father's face. Enrique shook his head, returning to the present. "Nothing, darling. I was just thinking about how quickly time passes. It seems like yesterday that you could fit on my lap." Marcela rolled her eyes, but a fond smile played on her lips. "Dad, you're getting sentimental again." "It's the privilege of age, mi amor," Enrique replied with a wink. After finishing their ice cream, they decided to take a walk around the neighborhood. The streets gradually became less touristy as they moved away from the center. Imposing buildings gave way to modest houses, some in need of repair. Children played on the sidewalks, their laughter echoing through the narrow streets. Marcela unconsciously squeezed her father's hand. "Dad, maybe we should go back. This place doesn't seem very safe." Enrique looked around, his eyes catching details that his daughter in her privileged youth couldn't see. He saw families united, neighbors greeting each other, a strong community despite the obvious difficulties. "Don't judge a book by its cover, Marcela," he said softly. "Sometimes the humblest places hide the richest hearts." They continued walking, Enrique occasionally stopping to chat with locals, his fluent Spanish breaking down barriers and opening smiles. Marcela watched, a mixture of admiration and confusion on her face. It was only when they returned to the luxurious hotel where they were staying that Enrique noticed something was wrong. His hands fumbled in his pockets, an expression of growing concern on his face. "What is it, Dad?" Marcela asked, noticing the change in her father's demeanor. "My wallet," Enrique replied, his voice tense. "I can't find it." Panic quickly set in. The wallet not only contained a considerable amount of money, but also credit cards and important documents. Enrique tried to retrace his steps mentally, remembering each place where they had stopped. "It must have been in that poor neighborhood," Marcela said, her voice betraying a mixture of fear and accusation. "I told you we shouldn't have gone there." Enrique sighed, running a hand through his gray hair. "Don't jump to conclusions, child. We could have lost anywhere." But Marcela's words planted a seed of doubt in his mind. Had they been stolen without realizing it? The idea went against everything Enrique believed about people, especially those in disadvantaged situations. The rest of the day was spent in a frantic search. Henrique called all the places they had visited, described the wallet in detail to the local police, and even returned to the neighborhood where they suspected the wallet had been lost. But by nightfall there was no sign of it. Exhausted and discouraged, father and daughter returned to the hotel. The luxurious room with its panoramic view of the city seemed to mock their current situation. "What now, Dad?" Marcella asked, dropping into an armchair. "How are we going to celebrate my birthday without credit cards?" Henrique looked at his daughter, a mixture of love and disappointment in his eyes. "Marcella, mi amor, money isn't everything in life. We have each other, and that's what really matters." But the words rang hollow even to his own ears. Henrique knew he had failed to teach Marcella the true value of things. Sitting on the edge of the bed, he decided to share a story he rarely told. "Did you know that when I was your age, I didn't have a penny in my pocket?" he began. Marcella looked at him in disbelief. "What? But wasn't Grandpa rich?" Henrique laughed humorlessly. "Rich? My father was a fisherman, Marcella. We lived in a small village on the coast of Mexico. Sometimes we didn't know if we'd have anything to eat the next day." Marcella's eyes widened. This was a part of her father's story she had never heard before. "One day," Henrique continued, "I decided that I wanted more out of life. Not just for myself, but to help my family and my community. So, with just the clothes on my back and a few coins in my pocket, I set off for Mexico City." "And how did you do it?" Marcella asked, completely absorbed in the story. "With a lot of hard work, determination, and I admit a bit of luck," Henrique replied. "But the most important thing was that I never forgot where I came from. Every penny I earned, every success I achieved, I always thought about how I could use it to help others." Marcella was silent for a moment, digesting her father's words. "Is that why you always do so much charity work?" Henrique nodded. "Exactly. Because I know what it's like to be on the other side. And I know that sometimes all a person needs is an opportunity." Silence fell over the room, father and daughter lost in their own thoughts. It was Marcella who finally broke the silence. "I'm sorry, Dad," she said softly. "I think I've been too spoiled." Henrique smiled, getting up to hug his daughter. "Don't apologize, mi amor. It's my responsibility to teach you, and perhaps I've failed in that." That night, they both slept a restless sleep, their minds filled with worries about the lost wallet and reflections on privilege and responsibility. The next morning, Henrique was woken by the shrill ring of the bedroom phone. Still drowsy, he answered it, expecting to hear the voice of the concierge or perhaps the local police. "Señor Souza?" a childish voice asked on the other end of the line. Fully awake now, Henrique replied, "Yes, it's me. Who is this?" "My name is Ana," the voice replied. I found your wallet." Henrique's heart raced. Could it be possible? Or was it some kind of scam? "Where did you find it?" he asked, trying to keep his voice calm. "In the street, near my house," Ana replied. "There are a lot of important things inside, aren't there? I want to give it back to you." Henrique felt a wave of emotion run through him. This child, clearly from a poor neighborhood, had found a fortune and wanted to give it back. "That's very kind of you, Ana," he said. "Where can we meet?" Ana gave the address of a square in the neighborhood where Henrique and Marcella had walked the day before. Henrique promised to be there in an hour. After hanging up, he woke Marcella and told her the news. His daughter, still drowsy, reacted with a mixture of relief and skepticism. "Dad, what if it's a trap?" she asked, concern evident in her voice. Henry considered the possibility for a moment. "It could be," he admitted. "But I prefer to believe the best in people. In any case, we won't be going alone." He made a quick call to his bodyguard, who was staying in another room in the hotel, instructing him to get ready to accompany them. An hour later, Henrique, Marcella, and the bodyguard, a tall, muscular man called Carlos, arrived at the indicated square. The place was relatively empty at that time of the morning, with only a few people hurrying to work and a small group of children playing in a worn-out playground. It was then that Henrique saw her. A little girl of no more than 9, with tousled black hair and a simple faded dress, was sitting on a bench holding something against her chest. Henrique approached slowly, not wanting to frighten her. "Ana?" he called softly. The girl looked up, her big brown eyes widening as she saw the group approaching. For a moment, Henrique feared she was going to run away, but then a shy smile lit up her face. "Senor Sousa?" she asked, standing up. Henrique nodded, kneeling down so that he was at the girl's height. "Yes, it's me." "You must be Ana." Ana held out her hands, revealing a brown leather wallet that Henrique recognized immediately. "Here's your wallet, senor. Everything is in there. I didn't take anything, I promise." Henrique took the wallet with trembling hands, hardly believing what was happening. He opened it, realizing that all the money and cards were intact. Tears began to form in the millionaire's eyes. This child, who clearly came from a family with financial difficulties, had the integrity to return a sum of money that could change his family's life. "Ana," he said, his voice laced with emotion. "You don't know how much this means to me. Your honesty is something rare and precious." Ana smiled, a smile that lit up her whole face, despite her crooked teeth and the dirt on her cheeks. "Mom always says you have to do the right thing, even when it's hard." Henrique felt his heart fill with admiration for this child and her family. "Your mother is a very wise woman, Ana. You must be very proud of her." Ana nodded enthusiastically. "Yes, I am. She works very hard to look after me and my little sister." Marcella, who until then had been watching the scene in silence, approached. "Ana, did you use your own money to call my father's hotel?" The girl lowered her gaze, suddenly looking ashamed. "Yes, it was the money I was saving to buy a cake for my sister's birthday, but I knew the wallet was more important." Henrique and Marcella exchanged a look, both deeply touched by the girl's sacrifice. "Ana," Henrique said, taking the little girl's hand. "You've done something extraordinary today. I'd like to reward you. What would you like?" Ana's eyes lit up for a moment, but then she bit her lip, hesitating. I can't ask for anything, senor. I didn't do this for a reward." "I know, dear," Henry replied gently. "But your honesty and sacrifice deserve to be recognized. Please ask for something, anything." Ana was silent for a long moment, her eyes wandering between Henrique, Marcella, and the imposing Carlos. Finally she spoke, her voice almost a whisper. I'd like my sister to have a birthday party. She's never had one." The simplicity and altruism of the request hit Enrique and Marcella like a punch in the gut. Here was a child who, given the chance to ask for anything for herself, thought only of bringing joy to her sister. Enrique felt the tears streaming down his face, unable to contain them. Next to him, Marcella was also crying silently, her view of the world being drastically altered before her eyes. "Ana," Enrique said, his voice laced with emotion. "Not only are we going to give your sister a birthday party, but I want to invite you, her and your mother, to a special celebration at the hotel where we're staying." "What do you think?" Ana's eyes widened with surprise and excitement. "Really, senor, can we really?" Marcella, wiping away her tears, knelt down beside her father. "Of course you can, Ana. In fact, how about we do it tonight? It's my birthday too, and I'd love to share the celebration with you." Hannah could hardly contain her joy. She hopped from one foot to the other, her smile so bright that it seemed to light up the whole square. "Oh, thank you, thank you. Mom and Lucia will be so happy." Henrique smiled, feeling a wave of warmth spread through his chest. "Well, that's settled then, but first let's meet your mother and sister. Can you take us to them?" Ana nodded enthusiastically and began to lead them through the narrow streets of the neighborhood. As they walked, Henrique couldn't help but notice how Marcella observed everything around her with new eyes, no longer with fear or contempt, but with genuine curiosity and growing empathy. After a few minutes of walking, they arrived at a small apartment in a worn-out building. Ana ran ahead, knocking enthusiastically on the door. "Mom, Mommy, you won't believe what's happened." The door opened, revealing a middle-aged woman with the same large expressive eyes as Ana. She looked tired, with deep dark circles under her eyes, but her face lit up when she saw her daughter. "Ana, what's going on? Who are those people?" she asked, her gaze alternating between her daughter and the well-dressed strangers on her doorstep. Henrique stepped forward, holding out his hand. "Senora, my name is Henrique Sousa. Your daughter found my wallet and returned it intact. She's an extraordinary child." The woman's eyes widened in recognition. "Oh, the wallet, Ana told me about it. I'm Elisa. Please come in." The interior of the apartment was small and simple, but impeccably clean. There was little furniture. but the walls were decorated with colorful children's drawings, giving the place a welcoming atmosphere despite the obvious poverty. A girl smaller than Anna, who Henrique assumed to be Lucia, was peeking shyly from behind an ajar door. Elisa invited everyone to sit down, hastening to offer water, which was clearly all she had to offer. Henrique accepted graciously, noticing how Elisa's hands trembled slightly. "Senora Elisa," Henrique began, "your daughter did something today that touched me deeply. She found a wallet full of money and important documents, and instead of keeping it for herself, she did her best to return it. That speaks volumes about the character you're building in her." Elisa smiled, her eyes shining with pride. "Thank you, senor. We don't have much, but I've always taught my daughters that honesty and kindness are the most valuable things we can possess." Marcela, who had been quiet until then, spoke up. "You've done an incredible job, Senora Elisa. Anna is a wonderful girl." Henrique then explained about the invitation to the party at the hotel. At first, Elisa seemed hesitant, clearly uncomfortable with the idea of accepting charity. But Anna and Lucia's excitement was contagious, and she finally agreed. "Great!" Henrique exclaimed. "I'll send a car to pick you up at 6 p.m. And don't worry about clothes or anything else. Everything will be taken care of." Before they left, Henrique discreetly handed Elisa an envelope. "To help with expenses," he said quietly. "Please take it. It's the least I can do for your daughter's honesty." Elisa tried to refuse, but Henrique insisted. "Use it to give your daughters something special. They deserve it." With tears in her eyes, Elisa finally accepted the envelope, hugging Henrique tightly. "Thank you, senor. God bless you." As they walked back to the hotel, Henrique noticed that Marcela was unusually quiet. "What is it, mi amor?" he asked gently. Marcela looked at her father, her eyes full of emotion. "Dad, I never realized. They have so little, but they're so happy, so generous. I think I understand now why you've always been so insistent on helping others." Henrique smiled, feeling a surge of pride for his daughter. "It's a valuable lesson, Marcela. The true value of a person is not in what they have, but in what they are willing to give." The rest of the day was a rush of preparations. Henrique and Marcela worked together to organize a party that was both elegant and welcoming. They carefully chose the buffet dishes, making sure there were options that Anna, Lucia, and Elisa would probably like. Marcela insisted on buying presents for the girls, choosing educational toys and coloring books. At 6 p.m. sharp, Anna, Lucia, and Elisa arrived at the hotel. The girls were amazed by the luxury of the place, their wide eyes trying to absorb every detail. Elisa looked a little uncomfortable, but Henrique and Marcela's warm smiles soon made her feel more at ease. The party was an absolute success. Anna and Lucia enjoyed themselves like never before, trying food they had never tasted before and playing with the other children of the hotel staff that Henrique had invited to make the atmosphere more welcoming for the girls. At one point in the evening, Henrique noticed Elisa watching her daughters with tears in her eyes. He approached her, offering her a glass of water. "Is everything all right, Senora Elisa?" he asked gently. Elisa wiped away her tears, smiling. "Yes, Senor Henrique. It's just that I've never seen my girls so happy. I've always wanted to give them moments like this, but..." Henrique nodded understandingly. "I understand. But know that you've already given them something much more valuable than any party or material gift." Elisa looked at him, curious. "What do you mean?" "You've given them character, Senora Elisa," Henrique replied. "Integrity, compassion, those are the true riches of life." Henrique's words touched Elisa deeply. She smiled, feeling truly valued for perhaps the first time in her life. As the evening progressed, Henrique realized that this experience had changed not only Anna and her family, but also him and Marcela. His daughter was interacting with the girls in a way he had never seen before, genuinely interested in their lives and experiences. When it came time to cut the cake, Marcela insisted that Lucia blow out the candles with her. The two girls, one born into wealth and the other into poverty, smiled at each other, united in that moment of shared joy. Before Anna's family left, Henrique called Elisa in for a private chat. "Senora Elisa," he began, "I hear you're looking for a job." Elisa nodded in surprise. Yes, senor. How did you know? I have my means, Enrique smiled. I'd like to offer you a position in one of my hotels here in San Diego. It would be a supervisory job, with a salary that would allow you to provide a better life for your daughters. Elisa's eyes filled with tears. Senor Enrique, I don't know what to say. It's more than I could have dreamed of. Enrique put a hand on her shoulder. Say yes, Senora Elisa. You deserve this opportunity, and I'm sure you'll do an exceptional job. With tears streaming down her face, Elisa accepted the offer, hugging Enrique tightly. Thank you, senor. Thank you for changing our lives. When the party finally came to an end and Ana, Lucia, and Elisa left, not without exchanging phone numbers with Marcela, who promised to keep in touch, Enrique and his daughter were left alone in the ballroom. Marcela turned to her father, her eyes shining with a new light. Dad, thank you for that. I think I've learned more today than in all my years at school. Enrique hugged his daughter, feeling immense pride. I'm happy about this, mi amor. Always remember, our true wealth lies in how we treat others and the good we can do in the world. That night, father and daughter went to sleep with full hearts, knowing that they had not only recovered a lost wallet, but gained a new perspective on life and the true meaning of wealth. At this point, I'd like to pause the narrative briefly to ask viewers to comment on where they're watching this video from. If you're enjoying the story so far, please consider subscribing to the channel. Your participation is very important to us. Now let's get on with the story. The following months brought many changes for everyone involved. Enrique and Marcela returned to Mexico, but kept in regular contact with Elisa and their daughters. Marcela, inspired by the experience, decided to postpone her university entrance for a year in order to work on charity projects, a decision that initially surprised Enrique, but which he was quickly proud of. Elisa, for her part, flourished in her new job. Her impeccable work ethic and kind nature quickly made her a well-liked and respected employee. Ana and Lucia were enrolled in a better school, and for the first time had access to opportunities that had previously seemed unattainable. Everything seemed to be going perfectly well until 6 months after that fateful night. Enrique received a disturbing call from Elisa. Senor Enrique. Elisa's voice shook on the other end of the line. I'm sorry to bother you, but I don't know what to do. Worried, Enrique asked, What happened, Elisa? Are you and the girls all right? Elisa took a deep breath before continuing. It's work, senor. The new hotel manager. He's been difficult. As Elisa recounted the events of the last few months, Enrique's face became increasingly gloomy. The new manager, a man called Victor Ramirez, was apparently prejudiced against immigrants and was making Elisa's life a living hell. He overloaded her with extra work, unfairly criticized her performance, and made derogatory comments about her origin. Yesterday, Elisa continued, her voice breaking, he humiliated me in front of the whole team. He said that I'd only gotten the job out of pity and that I'd never be anything but a cleaner, no matter how much I tried to elevate myself. Anger boiled up inside Enrique. This was not the kind of behavior he tolerated in any of his ventures. Elisa, I'm sorry you had to go through this. I promise I'll resolve this situation immediately. After hanging up the phone, Enrique immediately began making arrangements for an emergency trip to San Diego. He informed Marcela of the situation, and she insisted on accompanying him. Dad, Marcela said with determination, Elisa and the girls are practically family now. We have to help them. Enrique smiled, proud to see how his daughter had matured over the last few months. You're right, mi amor. Let's go together. The next day, Enrique and Marcela arrived in San Diego. Their first stop was Elisa's house, where they found the woman visibly haggard, with deep circles under her eyes and a look of defeat that broke both their hearts. Ana and Lucia, normally so cheerful and energetic, were quiet and worried, clearly affected by their mother's stress. Senor Enrique, Senorita Marcela, Elisa greeted them with a weak smile. You didn't have to come all this way. Marcela stepped forward, hugging Elisa tightly. Of course we had to. You're important to us. Enrique watched the scene with a mixture of pride and determination. Elisa, I want you to know that we're going to sort this out. No one deserves to be treated like this, especially someone as dedicated and hard-working as you. Elisa nodded. tears in her eyes. "Thank you, I just don't want to cause any trouble." "You're not causing trouble," Enrique stated firmly. "It's Victor Ramirez who's causing trouble, and he's going to learn that this kind of behavior is unacceptable." That afternoon, Enrique and Marcela went to the hotel. The owner's presence caused a stir among the staff, many of whom seemed nervous and anxious. Enrique noticed the furtive glances and whispers, realizing that the situation was probably even worse than Elisa had described. Without wasting any time, Enrique went straight to Victor Ramirez's office. The manager, a middle-aged man in an expensive suit with an arrogant air, seemed surprised to see Enrique and Marcela walk in unannounced. "Mr. Souza!" Victor exclaimed, standing up quickly. "What a pleasant surprise! If I'd known you were coming, I would have prepared a full report on our operations." Enrique held up a hand, silencing the man. "Mr. Ramirez, I'm not here to discuss operations. I'm here to talk about your treatment of employees, specifically Ms. Elisa Morales." Victor's smile faltered for a moment before returning, now clearly forced. "Ah, Mrs. Morales. Well, Mr. Souza, I'm afraid she may have exaggerated any misunderstanding that may have occurred." Marcela, who had been watching silently until then, stepped forward. "Misunderstanding. Publicly humiliating someone and making racist comments are not misunderstandings, Mr. Ramirez." Victor seemed speechless for a moment, clearly not expecting to be confronted so directly. He cast a quick glance at Enrique, as if expecting the hotel owner to reprimand his daughter for speaking out of turn. But Enrique just crossed his arms, his face a mask of disapproval. "Look," Victor began, his tone now condescending, "maybe I've been a bit harsh at times, but you have to maintain discipline. Mrs. Morales is simply not up to the job. She doesn't have the necessary education or experience." Enrique felt anger rising inside him, but he kept his composure. "Mr. Ramirez, let me clarify a few things. First, I was the one who personally hired Ms. Morales for this position. Second, her performance has been exemplary, as evidenced by the reports I've received from other supervisors. And thirdly, and most importantly, we do not tolerate any kind of discrimination or harassment in our companies." Victor paled, finally realizing the gravity of the situation. "Mr. Souza, I can explain." But Enrique interrupted him again. "There's nothing to explain, Mr. Ramirez. Your actions are indefensible. I'm here to inform you that your services are no longer required at this hotel or any other property belonging to the Souza Group." The shock on Victor's face was palpable. But you can't just fire me. I have a contract, I have rights." Marcela, who had been fiddling with her tablet, spoke again. "Actually, Mr. Ramirez, the contract you signed has a very clear clause about dismissal for cause in cases of discrimination or harassment. You're familiar with that clause, aren't you? After all, you've used it to unfairly dismiss 3 employees in the last 4 months. Victor looked from Enrique to Marcela, the reality of his situation finally hitting him. Without saying another word, he began to collect his personal belongings. Enrique turned to leave but stopped at the door. "Mr. Ramirez, I hope you will use this experience as an opportunity to reflect and grow. Prejudice and discrimination have no place in the business world or in any other aspect of life." Leaving a stunned Victor Ramirez behind, Enrique and Marcela left the office. In the corridor, they met several employees who had clearly overheard part of the conversation. Enrique took the opportunity to make an impromptu announcement. "As of today, there will be changes in the management of this hotel," he declared loudly. "I want to make it clear that we do not tolerate any form of discrimination or harassment. If anyone feels uncomfortable or wronged at work, please don't hesitate to report it. We are here to create a positive and inclusive working environment for everyone." The employees applauded, many with tears in their eyes. It was clear that Victor's reign of terror had affected more than just Elisa. That evening, Enrique and Marcela invited Elisa and her daughters to dinner. When they told her about Victor's dismissal, Elisa was visibly relieved, but also worried. "What now?" she asked. "Who's going to manage the hotel?" Enrique smiled. "Well, Elisa, actually, I was hoping you could take over as interim manager while we look for a permanent replacement." Elisa's eyes widened in surprise. "Me? But I have no experience in hotel management." Marcela laughed softly. "Elisa, you have more experience than you think. You've managed your family on your own for years, keeping everything running with limited resources. That's exactly what a good hotel manager does. Henrique nodded in agreement. What's more, you know the workings of the hotel better than any outsider we could bring in. And most importantly, you have the trust and respect of the staff. Elisa looked at her daughters, who were watching her with pride and excitement. Anna was the first to speak. Go on, Mom. You're going to be the best manager ever. With tears in her eyes, Elisa finally accepted the offer. I'm going to do my best, Mr. Henrique. I won't let you down. Henrique smiled warmly. I know you won't, Elisa. In fact, I'm sure you'll exceed all our expectations. In the months that followed, Henrique's prediction proved correct. Under Elisa's leadership, the hotel flourished. Staff morale improved significantly, which was reflected in the quality of service. Guest reviews soared, and the hotel quickly became one of the highest rated in the Sousa chain. Marcella, inspired by Elisa's story, decided to focus her university studies on hotel management and corporate social responsibility. She began spending more time at her father's hotels, learning the business from the inside out, and always looking for ways to improve working conditions and opportunities for employees. A year after Victor's resignation, Henrique organized a big celebration at the hotel in San Diego. The event was officially to celebrate the year's excellent results, but everyone knew it was also a celebration of Elisa's journey. During the party, Henrique took to the stage to give a speech. He spoke about the challenges faced, the lessons learned, and the importance of creating an inclusive and respectful working environment. But above all, he concluded, I want to thank one person in particular. Elisa Morales, you taught us that true leadership doesn't come from titles or degrees, but from integrity, compassion, and determination. It is with great pride that I announce that the position of general manager of this hotel is officially yours, permanently. The room erupted in applause. Elisa, overcome with emotion, went up to the stage to hug Henrique. Anna and Lucia ran to join their mother, forming a group hug that moved everyone present. Marcella, watching the scene, felt a wave of emotion run through her. She remembered that afternoon in San Diego, just over a year ago, when a simple lost wallet changed so many lives. At that moment, she truly understood what her father had always tried to teach her, that true wealth lies not in what we own, but in the positive impact we can have on the lives of others. As the party continued around her, Marcella made a silent promise to herself. She vowed to build on her father's legacy, not just as a successful businesswoman, but as someone who uses her privilege and resources to create opportunities for others. She knew the path wouldn't be easy, but looking at Elisa and her daughters, she saw living proof that kindness and integrity can indeed change the world. The story of Henrique, Marcella, Elisa, and their daughters didn't end that night. In fact, it was just the beginning of a new journey. A journey of growth, learning, and transformation, not just for them, but for everyone around them. A journey that proved that sometimes the simplest gestures, like returning a lost wallet, can unleash a wave of change that extends far beyond what we can imagine. And so, as the party continued into the night, with laughter and music filling the air, a new story was being written. A story of hope, second chances, and the transformative power of compassion. A story that would inspire many for years to come, reminding everyone that, at the end of the day, it is our actions and the way we treat others that truly define who we are. We are coming to the end of our story. I hope you've enjoyed this exciting journey. If you've been touched by this narrative, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment where you live. 5 years have passed since that memorable night in the San Diego hotel. The lives of everyone involved had changed dramatically, but in ways that no one could have predicted. Elisa Morales was no longer just the manager of a hotel. She now oversaw an entire division of the Sousa hotel chain, focused on employee training and development. Her mentoring program, which gave opportunities to employees from disadvantaged backgrounds, had become a model for the entire hotel industry. Anna, now a bright and confident teenager, was preparing to enter university on a full scholarship. She dreamed of becoming a lawyer, inspired by her mother's fight against discrimination in the workplace. Lucia, on the other hand, showed a precocious talent for the culinary arts and was already talking about opening her own restaurant one day. Marcela Souza had graduated with honors in business administration and was gradually taking on more responsibilities in the family business. But her main focus was on the newly created Souza Foundation, a non-profit organization dedicated to providing education and employment opportunities to underprivileged communities throughout Mexico and Latin America. As for Henrique, he had reduced his direct involvement in business, preferring to spend more time advising Marcela and working on philanthropic projects. He often reflected on how a series of seemingly random events, a lost wallet, a child's honesty, a single mother's courage, had intertwined to create something truly extraordinary. One sunny afternoon, Henrique was sitting on the terrace of his house in Mexico City, watching the urban skyline. Marcela joined him, bringing 2 cups of coffee. "What are you thinking about, Dad?" she asked, handing him a cup. Henrique smiled, his eyes shining with a mixture of pride and nostalgia. "I'm thinking about how unpredictable life is, mi amor, how small moments can lead to big changes." Marcela nodded, understanding immediately. "You're thinking about that afternoon in San Diego, aren't you?" "Yes," Henrique replied. "You know, that day I thought I was just recovering a lost wallet. But actually we were gaining a family and a new perspective on life." Marcela smiled, remembering how she herself had changed since that day. "It's true. That experience taught me more about the real value of things than all my years of privileged education." Henry placed his hand on his daughter's. "And look at you now, mi amor, leading not only our business but also our mission to make a difference in the world." Just then, Marcela's phone rang. It was a video call from Elisa, Ana, and Lucia, who were visiting a new Souza property in Costa Rica. As they chatted animatedly about their plans and dreams for the future, Henrique felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. He thought of all the lives that had been touched and transformed in recent years, not just those of Elisa and her daughters, but also those of hundreds of employees and their families who now had new opportunities thanks to the changes implemented in their hotels. And it all started with a simple choice. The choice of a little girl to do the right thing, even when no one was looking. When the call ended, Henrique turned to Marcela with a twinkle in his eye. "You know, mi amor, I think I've finally understood the true meaning of wealth." Marcela tilted her head, curious. "And what is that, Dad?" Henrique smiled, his gaze roaming over the city below, imagining all the lives they could still touch. "The real wealth, Marcela, is in the connections we make, the lives we transform, and the legacy of goodness we leave behind." Marcela nodded, feeling the weight and responsibility of those words. "And it's a legacy I intend to continue, Dad. I promise." As the sun set over Mexico City, father and daughter stood in contemplative silence, reflecting on the past and dreaming of the future. They knew that their journey was far from over. In fact, in many ways, it had only just begun. And so the story of Henrique, Marcela, Elisa, and their daughters continued to unfold, touching more and more lives along the way. The impact of their actions, like waves on a pond, continued to spread, reaching places and people they could never have imagined. In the years that followed, the Souza Foundation became a powerful force for social change in Latin America. Inspired by Elisa's story, they created training and career development programs specifically aimed at single mothers and young people from disadvantaged communities. These programs not only offered practical skills, but also mentoring and emotional support, helping participants to overcome both professional and personal barriers. Ana, fulfilling her dream of becoming a lawyer, graduated with honors and immediately began working on discrimination cases in the workplace. Her personal experience and passion for justice made her a fierce defender of workers' rights. She often collaborated with the Souza Foundation, offering free legal advice to program participants. Lucia, for her part, surprised everyone by combining her passion for cooking with an unexpected talent for business. At the age of 21, she opened her first restaurant, a small bistro that quickly became a local success. But Lucia didn't stop there. Inspired by Henrique and Marcela's example, she created an apprenticeship program at her restaurant, offering opportunities for low-income young people to learn the trade of gastronomy. Elisa continued to rise through the corporate hierarchy, eventually becoming the first Latina woman to hold the position of CEO of the Sousa hotel chain. Under her leadership, the company not only prospered financially, but also became known for its ethical business practices and its commitment to social responsibility. Marcela, now completely at ease in her role as a business leader and philanthropist, began to be recognized internationally for her work. She was invited to speak at global conferences on sustainable business and social impact, always sharing the story of how a lost wallet changed the course of so many lives. As for Henrique, he has found a new passion in writing. Inspired by the events that transformed his life and the lives of so many others, he began writing books about business ethics, philanthropy, and the power of small actions. His books quickly became bestsellers, inspiring a new generation of entrepreneurs to consider the social impact of their actions. One day, 10 years after that fateful afternoon in San Diego, the entire extended family, Henrique, Marcela, Elisa, Ana, Lucia, and many others who had joined his journey over the years, gathered for a special celebration. It was Henrique's 70th birthday, and everyone wanted to pay tribute to the man who had been the catalyst for so many positive changes. During the party, Marcela took to the stage to give a speech, looking at the diverse crowd before her. High-ranking executives sitting next to former hotel employees who now ran their own businesses, children from scholarship programs mingling with influential philanthropists. She felt a wave of emotion run through her. 10 years ago, she began, her voice trembling slightly, my father lost a wallet. It seemed an insignificant event at the time, but that loss led to a priceless gain for us. We gained an extended family. We gained a new perspective on what really matters in life. And most importantly, we gained the understanding that each of us has the power to make a difference, no matter how small our actions may seem. She paused, her eyes meeting her father's in the crowd. Papa, you taught us that true wealth lies not in what we own, but in the positive impact we have on the lives of others. You showed us that compassion and integrity are the true currencies of a life well lived. And you inspired us to continue that legacy, to always look for ways to uplift others while uplifting ourselves. Tears glistened in Henry's eyes as he listened to his daughter's words. He looked around at the smiling, emotional faces that surrounded him and felt a deep sense of accomplishment. Not for the wealth he had accumulated or the business empire he had built, but for the lives he had touched and transformed. When Marcela finished her speech, the room erupted in applause. Henrique took to the stage, hugging his daughter tightly. As they stood there, father and daughter, surrounded by friends and family, both blood and heart, Henrique whispered, "Thank you, mi amor, for having learned the most important lesson of all." "What's that, Dad?" Marcela asked, wiping away a tear. Henrique smiled, his gaze sweeping the room full of transformed lives. That the true value of a person is not in what they have, but in what they are willing to give. And that sometimes you have to lose something to gain everything. And so, as the party continued around him, with laughter, music, and the warm feeling of family and friendship, Henrique reflected on the incredible journey that a simple lost wallet had triggered. He thought of all the lives that had been touched, all the stories that had been rewritten, all the dreams that had been realized, and he knew, with absolute certainty, that this was not the end of the story. It was just the beginning of a new chapter, full of infinite possibilities and the potential for even more positive transformations. Because in the end, the real wealth is not in the material goods we accumulate, but in the lives we touch, the changes we inspire, and the legacy of goodness we leave behind. And that is a wealth that continues to grow and multiply, long after we are gone. And so, as the sun set over the city, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Henrique learned that his true legacy was not the business empire he had built, but the countless lives that had been transformed by a simple action of honesty and compassion. The story of Henrique, Marcela, Elisa, and their daughters serves as a powerful reminder that each and every one of us has the power to make a difference. That our actions, however small they may seem, have the potential to create waves of positive change that extend far beyond what we can see or imagine. And perhaps therein lies the true magic of life, in the interconnectedness of our stories, in the way our actions can shape not only our own destiny, but the destiny of countless others. In a world often marked by division and selfishness, this story reminds us of the transformative power of compassion, integrity, and generosity. As night fell and the stars began to dot the sky, Henry made a silent wish. He wished that his story could continue to inspire others to make a difference, no matter how small that difference might seem. Because, as he had learned, sometimes it's the simplest gestures that have the power to change the world.